Welcome to the Unpackin' It podcast with Bryce Johnson. It's a show that unpacks sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. Enjoy inspiring conversations and thought-provoking interviews. You'll hear stories from people that will inspire, challenge, and encourage you. Now, from the Unpackin' It studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, uniting sports fans everywhere, here is Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to the Unpackin' It podcast. I'm Bryce Johnson. Hope you're doing well today. This is the show that unpacks sports, faith, and life. And today on the show, we are joined in studio by former Major League Baseball pitcher Jake Robbins, friend of the show, and has been on the Unpacking It podcast before, and so he is back with us and fired up to talk about the new season and spring training and all the excitement surrounding baseball, but then also the big story surrounding the Astros and the ongoing saga surrounding Houston, and so we'll get his insights into that story. And before we bring him on, let me ask you this. Do you need health insurance? Well, get quotes for individual health insurance plans at healthmarketgenius.com. That's healthmarketgenius.com. Know your options. Also, check out our website, unpackinit.com, and be sure to subscribe to our weekday email devotional. We call it Unpack This. And in recent weeks, I've been writing a lot about the Astros sign-stealing scandal, and so we'll unpack some of those topics today as well with Jake Robbins. And so let's say hello to Jake right now. Jake, thanks for being here, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely. So we'll talk about the excitement of the new season and some of the storylines and teams that you're looking out for. But we've got to start with the Astros. And in many ways, this story has been talked about and dissected by anyone and everyone, and everybody has weighed in. But I think maybe the gap in the conversation really is kind of the spiritual side of things and some of the deeper layers to what did go on, what has gone on, and what will happen moving forward, and just all the different dynamics of cheating and integrity and judging and the brotherhood in baseball. So I think there's a lot of meat there. But let's first off get your thoughts. Just when you heard this come out officially, what were your thoughts? And I have a feeling you kind of knew about even this, but before everybody, kind of the main public knew about it.
My first thought, I was surprised. At the level, the end game, we've known for years that there's been video recording of games and, sign stealing, the guy on second base trying to pick up signs from the catcher or the, other coaches versus the team you're playing, looking at the third base coach and trying to pick up his signs and in advance. I mean, even when I'm coaching today, I'm using hand signals and body signals, you're trying to pick up any advantage you can, it's competition. But doing it in game was a little. I felt like it was a little aggressive. but having some friends and guys actually that I've worked with, in pitching sessions through high school and college and even pro ball. There's 11, 12 guys that work at our facility here in Charlotte to get ready for spring training, and the stories that we've shared and talked about it. It's concerning. It's. I think the first word that comes to my mind is selfish. I think that the Houston Astros players look back at what's happened, even though they've won a World Series and they've had some successful years and they're making more money, because of those. I think that their intention was not to hurt, the other opposing players, but ultimately, there's been a couple lawsuits come out.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Against the Houston Astros. There's been guys that have pitched their final game, because they gave up a certain amount of runs, home runs. ERA was, ballooned. They didn't get another opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Clayton Kershaw, who's been dominant for years, double-digit years. I was sharing with you earlier, threw 51 breaking balls in the 2017 World Series and no swing and misses when you know how good his breaking ball is. So first word that comes to mind is selfish, but the players themselves are, individually, there's no consequences, or seems that there's not going to be any consequences from the commissioner or from baseball, but they'll have to deal with themselves individually.
Yeah, which definitely they got to look in the mirror and all that sort of thing. What did you think of other players around the league speaking up and the comments that they made in the media, knowing that or assuming that are the Astros the only players doing this, the only team doing this? But it's what we heard from enough guys around the league that they came out and said, hey, this is ridiculous, and right. the number of comments.
There are some guys that are close to me have made comments. They Alex Wood said he'd rather face a guy on steroids than someone who knows what pitch I'm about to throw. There's been multiple guys that have echoed those same thoughts. So I don't know. I think obviously there's guys that are upset and they're disappointed, and they can look back and say, what if, right? I was thinking about it over the last couple of days. The foundation of who we are is more important than what we do, and where is your trust? I think that regardless of what you do, your trust has to be in the Lord.
Absolutely.
Right? And their foundation has to be in the Word of God and the Bible. So you can play the victim for as long as you want to, but in order to be victorious, and move forward, that has to be your foundation, and you have to trust in God versus your own hands and and your own strength and power. But which the Bible talks about that as well.
That's right. Absolutely. So for, I guess, baseball overall, you're part of the fraternity of baseball players and still being involved with so many guys that are still playing and still trying to make it to the big leagues. What does baseball do moving forward? Like, now that this is such a black eye on the sport, and in many ways baseball is being talked about more than it has in a while, but it seems like it takes a controversy like this or a situation like this for mainstream media to lead their shows with it and all that kind of thing. So what now? What's the state of baseball based on this?
Well, I think the current state of baseball is good. I think there's more viewers than ever, and I think Rob Manfred is making enough bad decisions right now that I'm almost wondering if he's doing it intentionally to get the publicity off of the Astros. So I was reading some tweets this morning, and some people were upset that you got a guy who signed nearly a $500 million contract, and nobody sees his first outing for the Yankees yesterday. So that wasn't aired. The rule changes of trying to shorten the game. I think that we've seen in other sports where rule changes have been made and you start to lose the fan base. You don't want that. So how does baseball remove the black eye? I don't know if they can remove it without possibly putting some consequences or retribution on the players themselves with Houston. I think that, with Beltran stepping down and Alex Cora stepping down and A.J. Hinch being removed for a year, those are some pretty substantial moves.
Oh, yeah.
And, the Astros being fined $5 million, that might not be enough. But when I say $5, that's like $5 to us.
That's right.
But that baseball's done what they could so far, and maybe players feel like they need to go a little further. But anytime bad speed bumps, blocks in the road, happen like this, a lot of times there's growth from it. Bad publicity is still publicity, right? So I think baseball is going to be fine in the long run. I think it's great that there's been so much uproar about it. That means a lot of people care.
Absolutely.
Right? So anytime there's passion and people care about a certain situation, circumstances, happenings, that's a good thing. So we found that people do care about the game,
which is huge, and there's something about baseball even beyond every other sport where we want it to be this pure sport, You know, we've got these things in our head that make baseball special and unique, and it feels like it's been around the longest in our, in our hearts and minds and all that kind of thing. And so we don't this attacks something inside of us when we hear that people are messing with the game. And so the next phase of this now is moving forward. And so whether we're fans, former players, current players, there's a level of, okay, forgiveness. How do we move on? Can we forgive the Astros, or are we going to be cheering for fans to boo them every time they step on the field, or pitchers to actually belt them during the season? Right. So I push back against that, one, from a spiritual standpoint, but ultimately, two, I don't know what that solves. As a former pitcher, where do you come out on that whole side of things?
Well, it's easy to let your flesh dominate you and be upset about the situation, but ultimately, we're called to forgive.
Yeah,
we have to forgive.
Yeah,
and when you don't forgive, you're not hurting the other person; you're only hurting yourself.
That's right.
So, we're called to walk in love. That's our only commandment, right? To walk in love. So
everything stems from that,
right? And it's easy to walk in love towards somebody who's loving you.
That's right.
It's the opportunity that you have to walk in love when somebody's, not being so kind or nice, or they've cheated you, right? It's still your responsibility as a Christian to walk in love and to forgive and trust in the Lord. That let Him deal with them, right? So that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
That's when, don't trust in yourself or trust in man or trust in anybody else to bring consequences to that person, but you trust in the Lord and that,
The other angle that I think is interesting too is how this came out. And, the word snitch has been used as well. So the fact that, cheating has gone on in baseball and of course over the years, the PED conversations. How do you feel about the information and how it gets out and how people find out that cheating is going on? Is there a responsibility to, for a player on a team that sees it going on or sees an individual doing it to turn that guy in? Now there's a spiritual side of this too, but from a baseball perspective, where do you come out on that?
You have to walk out your own salvation, right, according to the Word, and so. I think it's interesting, and I'll back up a minute and then answer that question. The love of money, right, is the root of all evil. Not money, but the love of money.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing in organizations, filter down to players individually. And, why are they taking PEDs? Why are they using video cameras? Why, has competition got, that heated or that intense that you need to do that? Or... so yeah, winning a World Series, there's monetary value there, right? That they have brought in or taken away from the person they're competing against. So I think what we're finding is, and not just in baseball, but in society, that right versus wrong is being trumped, right, by the love of money. And so I think individually in our hearts, we have to do what we feel is right and get back to that according to what the Word says versus, this is going to put an extra $100 in my pocket or an extra $1,000 or an extra $10,000 or $1 million, whatever it is. I'm going to do what's right and trust in the Lord that He's going to take care of me.
Yeah.
Right. So as far as, what Mike Fiers did, I greatly appreciated some of the articles that I read. Brian McCann had spoken against the guys that were doing this, trying to get them to stop. I understand A.J. Hinch had broken 2 or 3 iPads and electronic devices trying to get them to stop. And so there were guys that spoke up and said, this isn't right. Now, should Fiers have done it during the, before he got the World Series ring, right? Instead of after the World Series ring? I think,
and then got another contract.
Right. After, or is it after he gave up 18 runs to the Astros last year and he knows what's going on? So, those guys got to answer that for themselves. But ultimately, it gets back to, trusting, the one who gave you the ability to play.
That's right. And yeah, so I think this whole topic, the word that really stood out to me was the judging side of things, and there are layers to it. So I wrote a devotional, I guess, last week about this, and the idea that we as followers of Jesus have a responsibility to each other as other believers, that when we see a brother struggling or engaging in sin or heading down a path of destruction, to say, yo, time out, what's going on? This is not okay. Like what you're doing that could affect your marriage, that could affect what you're doing at work. This is not okay. And so we have to be willing to stand up, to point out sin, to point out someone that's heading down the wrong path. We have to be willing to do that. And it takes confidence and faith and trusting in the Lord to direct us to know what to say, how to say it, when to say it. But we do have to do that. And so I think there is a parallel to that. And for baseball players to say, hey, we're in this together. We can't have some guys cheating and others not. And, that it's not great for the whole game. And the brotherhood of baseball players. And so similarly for us as believers, we got to hold each other accountable. And it's still important that we do speak against harmful sin in life, but for non-believers, they don't believe in the Bible. Like they don't hold themselves to the same standard. So there's an understanding that we have to do it for each other in the body of believers. So that's why I think baseball players calling out other baseball players, they're in it together. So that, to me, that's where the parallel is. Right. But then also, it made me realize too that we also have to be very careful when we do judge people to make sure that we've got our own hearts taken care of. That we're not just noticing everybody else's sin and totally overlooking the issues in our own lives. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's crucial too. Comparing it to baseball, that you got to make sure that you're keeping your integrity intact as well before approaching someone else and calling someone else out. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that was one of my kind of big takeaways from this whole thing.
Yeah, make sure you're not living in a glass house, right?
That's
you're
it.
Gonna throw rocks. So
that's right.
No, I think I was looking earlier as I was in the Word in Galatians 6. It talks about anyone who's caught in transgression, for those who are spiritual to go and restore him.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So
that's the verse I used, Galatians 6:1.
Really?
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
So everybody, you hear, don't judge me, don't judge me. You hear that, people say that all the time, right?
Yep.
So, but people need help. I think if you go and you go to them in meekness, right, and in kindness and
grace, love.
Grace, absolutely. You're wanting to help them. You're not calling someone out over Twitter or social media is not the right approach.
No, it's not helpful.
So that's not going to make somebody want to make an adjustment. So, but you go to them in person, and you take another brother with you, right? And then if that doesn't work, and then it becomes public, then the person had opportunity to make an adjustment, then that's on them. But initially you want to go and initially the foundation's got to be the Word, and then second, you're taking a brother with you to help guide them in the right direction and making that adjustment according to what's right and wrong according to the Word and the Bible.
Yeah, because you have to think too. Like, it's cool that the Astros won that World Series, but whether they officially take it away or not, it's still so tarnished, and the asterisk, and for the rest of their lives, the value of being a World Series champ or a Super Bowl champ is that you carry that with you for the rest of your life. And whether you're a keynote speaker or your future business efforts, you always use that. But now these Astros players, it doesn't carry the same weight, even though they experience the excitement of it. But even then, I have to imagine that part of them has to be thinking, man, did we really earn this? Right. And so in comparing it to sin, when we approach people, it's out of, man, this isn't going to ultimately help you. Like, this isn't the way to do it. Right. Sure, maybe you end up making more money by cutting this corner or whatever, but is that really what you want to do? And you think, oh, I'm going to go mess around with this girl and cheat on my wife, and it's not going to end well. It may be fun temporarily, but it's not going to end well. Right. And so this is just another reminder of that principle, that truth, that reality.
Right.
So
yeah, having an eternal perspective versus a temporal perspective. is something that I remind myself of daily. Is this going to help in the grand scheme of things eternally?
That's right.
Versus temporal gain. We were talking earlier, you and I were about we are God's greatest creation. He created us for His fellowship. That's the reason we were created. Not to be a businessman, not to be a basketball player, baseball player. We were created to have fellowship with Him first. So, in our spirit, when I was going back to my conversation I was having with a buddy, is rest in peace. And I said, do you know that you never die? And he looked at me like, what are you talking about? I said, you're never going to die. Your spirit doesn't die. You're either going to heaven or hell, according to the decision that you make of believing, that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, born and raised, right? Went to hell, defeated the enemy, died on the cross, and was, sits at the right hand of the Father today. I said, so your spirit never dies. So we're talking about a short gap of 70 to 120 years that we're alive on this earth. That gives you a pretty strong eternal view, of what God wants He wants in us, His fellowship and to share the good news gospel.
Amen. Yeah, it's such a blip of time, and yeah, every day we got to have that eternal perspective, because that's what really matters and that's what lasts. And so we get caught up in so many little things and temporary things and temporary satisfaction and temporary winning. So a lot there with the Astros, but appreciate your insight on that and some different perspectives on it. But the baseball season is getting going here with spring training and opening day around the corner. And so what teams, what storylines are you most intrigued by this time of year?
Well, the news came out yesterday about Luis Severino having to have Tommy John surgery. So I'm a Yankees fan. I was drafted by the Yankees, and after growing up a New York Mets fan, I quickly changed alliances when George Steinbrenner signed my first check. So.
There you go.
So I'm looking forward to seeing Garrett Cole on the mound. I hate it for Severino, but looking forward to seeing Cole on the mound and some of the moves that they've made over the offseason. Obviously, the Dodgers in the Mookie Betts trade and getting David Price over from the Red Sox are going to be strong in the National League. I think the Braves, close to 4 hours down the road, 3.5 hours down the road from here in Charlotte, the Braves are going to have a strong team, a strong club again. So I think baseball in itself is in a good state, is in a strong state. There's a lot of young players, to follow. Judge and those guys, looking to stay healthy and have a strong year. So I'm actually jumping back into fantasy baseball this year. A buddy of mine approached me, and so I'm going to jump in and see what I can put my hand to it, see if I can win something.
Fantasy baseball is intense.
Yes, it is.
Whereas NFL is once a week.
That's why I stayed away from it. It's every single day.
It's a
10
lot.
to 16 games. It's a lot. It's a whole lot.
Yeah, gosh, who did I have back then? Maybe Verlander, Kazmir. I had some pitchers that were studs back then, but anyway. So one other interesting storyline, of course, the Tim Tebow. Anytime he does something in minor league baseball, Twitter blows up, and he hit a home run this week, and so for you as someone who grinded and made it to the big leagues and experienced the minors and the journey, the process, and you work with these guys all the time and helping them try to get there. The path that Tebow has taken, the fanfare surrounding him, I'm a little surprised that he's even back at it again this year. He's still pursuing this dream. What do you make of his story and just the fact that he's still in the mix?
His message is always the same. It's consistent. He points to Christ.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that about him. I watched him cross home plate after hitting the home run. It's just another day at the office, and he obviously has a vision and a goal of what he wants to accomplish. And keep on doing what you're doing, man. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah. No. Do you think he can play on the big boy roster with the Mets?
I mean, obviously the athleticism's there, the strength is there. I think baseball's a repetition sport, and I think the average or the typical peak age for a baseball player is around 31. I think it's 28 to 31 in there for a position player to pitcher. So
interesting.
I'm not sure how old he is. I think he's in that range.
Gosh.
He's around 30, 31 years old.
Yeah, if I'm 33, I think he's probably 32.
Okay, so
yeah, so he's right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a chance. I mean, he looks like he's swinging the bat pretty well. I think the most difficult obstacle he has in in the way here is in his defensive ability. So just tracking fly balls and the amount of reps that he's gotten, or the amount of time he's taken off in between high school baseball and obviously now with the Mets. But he looks good at the plate. So
yeah, I think he's got to hit a little bit higher percentage, but it's nice to see him hit a home run every once in a while. So that's fun. And then I guess he got injured last year, so I guess he's coming back from that. But it's just crazy. I mean, because he's busy throughout the whole year. We see him on SEC Network doing college football analysis, and he's also trying to make it to the bigs. It's crazy.
I didn't realize he was like you. I didn't realize he was trying again this year. I just happened to pick my phone up and look at Twitter this morning and saw the home run. And it did cross through my mind, like, how is he doing this? How is he getting the workouts in, the SEC Network, the commentating on football, the baseball work? I don't know how he's doing it.
No, he's doing
He gets
a lot.
more hours than we do.
He must, because he got engaged, I think, this year or last year, and so yeah, he's got so much going on. So I can't help but root for him. And if he does make it, I mean, what a story! I mean, they got to make a movie of his life for sure.
No doubt.
To not quite do what you wanted in football, and then to even sniff it. I mean, people thought this was a publicity stunt, a joke. There's no way. The fact just that he's been invited back. This has got to be the third year now.
It is.
So yeah, that's impressive stuff. So I'm definitely rooting for him. All right, do you have a World Series prediction this year? Yankees. I guess you like your Yankees.
Yankees. I'm gonna go Yankees Dodgers. I think everybody across the nation would like to see that. It's got some old baseball feel to it. You know, a lot of longevity, a lot of years in those two organizations. So I'd like to see the Yankees and Dodgers.
I'm intrigued. Yeah, I think the Dodgers, all that they've invested, it's time they get there. So maybe with the Astros not getting in their way, maybe they'll be able to do it. But to me, Joe Madden going to the Angels is very intriguing to me, and seeing Mike Trout and what they can do, and then him leaving the Cubs. What will the Cubs be like with Madden leaving? So Madden to me he's just an interesting guy, and I saw him on PTI the other day, and so I follow him a little bit more closely. So I'll be curious to see what they do. So man, well, Jake, let's wrap things up and maybe fill people in on just kind of the latest on your end with Showcase Baseball. How you feeling about the spring and kind of where you're at as a coach and pouring into all these young guys?
Yeah, I actually forgot. I have a T-shirt for you. So I brought his show. We're called Showcase Baseball Academy and kind of nicknamed the show. But we started a program called His Show for kids. We do it on Monday nights where we bring them in, and there's some character development and devotional time, Bible scriptures and things like that. That we're helping the kids grow spiritually as well as naturally and physically. As far as Showcase Baseball is concerned, we're around 55, 56 teams in 3 locations now in Charlotte. So we're growing. Glory to God.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Making an impact in kids' lives on and off the field. It seems like each sport these days is it's year-round. It's not spring do this, summer do that, fall do this. So we've already had 2 13U teams go to Florida and compete a couple weeks ago, and they play baseball year-round in Florida. So the young talent is there. So baseball coaches around the area doing a good job. So we're excited about what's going to happen in 2020 and the development of buying some land, building some fields, and continuing the vision that God's given us.
Man, I love it. That's awesome. And what about family wise? How's the family doing? What stage of life are you guys in right now?
They're good. So wife is good. 12 years of marriage. Just celebrated 12 years. Jumped on our snowboards.
Nice. Where at?
We went to Snowshoe.
Oh, very cool. I've been there. Yeah.
So that's always a good time, a good trip. Daughters are doing well, 3 and 5. They're going to jump into soccer this year. And yeah, so they grow up fast, which is everybody says, but it's true.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, so last year, my wife was pregnant, and so during the year, I asked every guest advice on becoming a new dad. I don't know if you remember the advice you gave me, but I interviewed, I don't know, 15, 20 guys. I asked them, and whenever I tell someone, yeah, I did that and got the great advice, your advice is the one that that stuck out the most to me. Do you remember what you said?
I do. It's changing as many diapers as you can.
That's it. That's it. So I did that more so early on because I was around. I tried to take time during the day to be home. So now I get the nighttime changing. But you're right. There's something special about the service of that, the time spent, and it's just it's a cool thing. So
I think
that was great advice.
I think that advice somebody gave me. You build a relationship with a kid. You take something off the mom's plate. And
Yep.
I was thinking about that actually yesterday. Planning on coming here. My second advice is putting the kids to bed as many nights as you can. So because that again takes a little bit of weight off mama's shoulders, and you get to spend a little bit of quality time with the kids, one-on-one. So those two pieces of advice rang true in my ears when they were given to me.
That's good. I'm Mr. Bath time and book reading. So
awesome.
So it's been a lot of fun for sure. Well, Jake, great having you on the show. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you being a part of Unpacking It, and we'll catch up again soon.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Bryce.
All right. There's Jake Robbins, former Major League Baseball pitcher, joining us here on the Unpacking It podcast. Thanks so much for listening today. As always, I'm Bryce Johnson. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sins. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. Check out unpackingit.com, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Unpacking It podcast.
For more information about the show, our events, and other resources, visit unpackinit.com. That's unpackinit.com. We hope you are encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. To support our show and Unpacking It Ministries with a financial gift, visit unpackingit.com/donate. We look forward to unpacking sports, faith, and life with you again next week.